What we're looking at over here is the adoption of AI and the scale at which AI is adopted. Now, this is a real rub, isn't it? We are in a world right now where without the adoption come join us. We are now in a world are in deep trouble. And yet, if you scale up AI, you could be in a scenario where you have to deal with a very changed workforce. And therefore, companies have to make choices. There's the entire issue of ethics in the workplace as well. At the same time, the efficiencies which AI introduces in so many areas, it's so promising, the results are so fast that it's something that very few industries across the world in specific sectors would like to ignore. Therefore, what we're looking at is scale or fail, the truth about AI adoption, right? It's a tough one, but one that we really need to look at. And I'm going to introduce our panelists, Jason Oxman, President and CEO of the Information Technology Industry Council. Thank you very much for being with us. Ivana Baroletti, the Global Chief Privacy and AI Governance Officer at Wipro. Alok Bajpai, Chairperson, MD and Group CEO of Ixigo. And a wonderful guest, they're all wonderful actually, but Jeff Burke, VP Business Development and Partnerships at Replit. Now, the reason Jeff was approximately 25 seconds late on this panel is because he had to fire up his laptop. And what Jeff says he can do, and I'm not sure he can, but what he says he can do is create a user interface, right, in about 2 minutes. A user interface for a particular application in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to put him on the spot, and I'm going to ask anybody over here to raise their hand and to give us an idea of what it is that they want him to create while we have this conversation. So hands up over there. Shubhangi?
Yep.
Oh, there you are. Go ahead.
Perfect. I think we have so many global delegates visiting. So if you could kind of curate 5-day itinerary for the...
Say that again, yeah.
Okay. So Jeff, we have so many global delegates visiting India for the first time for the Impact Summit. What about curating like a 5-day itinerary for the best things to do in and around Delhi, maybe top restaurants, just to make everyone's experience the best?
So he's actually typing that in now. We're going to give him some time because, and he's going to let me know when that's actually done. But in the meanwhile, since, I do need to give him a little bit of time, a couple of minutes, and, he's got a lot to prove over there. But until that time happens, I'm going to go across to Alok, and we'll come back to Jeff in a second. Yeah, Alok? Yeah. You run a business where scaling up is absolutely imperative, and the numbers are phenomenal. You serve over 500 million users. Many of them are first-time digital travelers. They aren't necessarily in urban centers. Just in terms of Ixigo, how has scalability been a priority, not an option?
Thanks. First of all, you can do this on Ixigo as well. You can go to Ixigo Plan, and we do AI trip planning. We launched it almost 3 years ago. And we don't just suggest the restaurants, we also tell you what dish to order in that restaurant based on traveler reviews. But coming to the question, look, I think we are in some ways in a domain where things go wrong, right? So when you travel, there are moments of anxiety, your flight might get cancelled, we've been through this, your train might get delayed. You're in India, the platform number of the train could change, the bus might not just show up. And I think at Ixigo, one of the things that's our core tenets is that we don't think of ourselves as a company selling tickets. We think of ourselves as a company that's selling peace of mind. And AI plays a very important role there, because if you think about being able to preempt when things go wrong or about to go wrong, and being able to solve for it in real time with the right content, the right information, or the right decision-making inputs. I think that's what people, especially in the next billion users or tier 2, tier 3 markets, where they have paucity of information, or they might not have the ability to pay beyond a certain amount, but they're confused whether they're buying the right ticket or not. I think in that sense, we are trying to protect the downside and also preserve the ability to have a more predictable experience using AI.
But can I just ask you, because we faced a huge crisis in the Indian aviation sector a couple of months back with Indigo and its crew rostering in a situation where a large part of the Indian aviation sector just sort of froze. How did you deal with it?
Yeah, so
the software helps.
It's a fantastic case study for us because, we had built this AI-first customer experience stack where almost 90% of the voice calls that we take or do outbound today are end-to-end AI. Almost 90% of our chat is end-to-end AI as well. So one of the things we realized was nobody was answering any phone calls or giving you any information during that crisis. People were struggling at the airport, did not know what to do next, did not even know whether their flight would take off. We proactively called almost 150,000 AI calls during those 5 days to inform people the status of their flight, whether it would go or not, and if it didn't, when they would get their refund or how they could reschedule it. And these AI bots, it would have been impossible to service that many customers in a short span of time. We had almost 5x as many reach outs. And we have this tool called Flight Tracker Pro, which is an AI flight status tracker. And we got like a 12x spike during that time on that because people sitting at the airport were also using our tool to tell others, whether the flight would go or not. So I think we saw a great applied use case of AI to essentially solve for anxiety in travel, which is what we all have gone through.
Okay. Jeff, how is it coming along?
It's going okay. I mean, it's building right now, but we're just trying to connect to the Wi-Fi. But it should be done any second now.
Ivana, when we talk about the changed workplace, there's also the entire issue of AI-ready governance. How does one bring in AI into the workforce without defining how it's going to be used within a corporate structure? How is that a huge challenge? Because you have to change minds as well, right? On the implementation of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I think it's a really interesting one because when generative AI came up, everybody started to use it very rapidly. And that was a big change compared to, until then, people were doing like machine learning, but you had to be like an expert to do it. But generative AI is accessible to everybody, so very suddenly, a lot of people started to use these tools. And that changed, and across the world, organizations started to say, okay, how are we going to handle this in our companies? What about copyright? What about data leaks? What about this and that? So that was like at the beginning, a huge kind of upheaval in companies and say, how are we going to govern that, the use? So a lot of organizations started to issue guidelines. A lot of people started to say, well, yes, you can use artificial intelligence, these generative AI tools, but is in your private instance as an organization. And of course, employees wanted to use it. It's interesting because employees want to use it because we know, and they know that it simplifies their work, and we know that it really allows people to focus on better tasks, less, not these mindless sort of repetitive things. But at the same time, employees are concerned about, is that going to take my job? So I think what is really important is that, first of all, is to bring employees with you. I think it's a responsibility of a responsible business to tell employees and to teach employees how to work with AI, what works and what doesn't work. So, for example, in my company, I head up AI governance. What we did was we said we're going to train everybody, at least on how to use it. Everybody, not just the people who know about technology, but everybody across the board, to say how are they going to use it, and also how to trust it and how to distrust it, because sometimes these systems, they make it up. So we didn't want people to copy and paste something that was completely made up. And it did happen, in many, many different places. We read, the Supreme Court of India is saying, well, be careful with the use of AI, of generative AI in the legal sector. But in Australia, we've had cases where organizations, they were hired to write a report, and the people who wrote it, they wrote it with using one of these tools. And then the client was like, hey, this is not real. That's it's just like hallucination. So teaching people to trust and teaching people how to distrust as well. Because by distrust, I don't mean that people don't trust this technology. I mean that people take it critically. And for example, at Wipro, when we say to people, you can use these tools to understand whether somebody is a good fit for your job,
right,
we know that this tool may discriminate. And we tell people, look, use it, but challenge. Because the more you challenge, it means that you've understood how the system works and you can help improve it.
Okay.
So it's I think it's a mindset and shift that we need to have in our organizations, but I think it's also part of the fun.
An opportunity. Now, Jeff, has that software of yours come along?
Yeah, no, it finished a little while ago. It's like my little
Tell us about it.
My little coworker just building on the side right here. But I don't know. Are you able to see? So I don't know if people in the crowd can see, but basically I took that exact.
They can. In fact, we've got it up on.
Oh.
But why don't you go ahead and describe what? So you built this website in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
It would have been faster had the Wi-Fi been on.
Yeah. So
what have you built?
Yeah. So when you get to Replit, it looked like this little chat box, and I just typed in the exact prompt she gave me. And then in the separate tab, you can see it started 8 minutes ago. So that's proof that I did not do this beforehand. And what happens is you type in this prompt, and the agent actually just starts thinking and creates a plan and goes and builds this application for you. So you can actually see the agent responded and said, hey, I'll create a modern editorial style. I didn't tell it that. It was just kind of the Replit agent being creative. It then walks you through everything it does, all the actions it took. You can actually click in here and see all the code it generated. It actually made these images. And then the end result is this Delhi Chronicle. That it came up with that solution as well, with some photos and locations that people can visit while they're here. And then what you would basically do is, again, you think of it like a coworker. I would just give it another prompt. Maybe I don't like the styling, or I want to add some things that are more personal. I go back and say, actually, maybe take another pass at this, or this is great. We actually launched a partnership with RazorPay yesterday, so you can add payments to these things too. So it's like, actually, this is great. Maybe I may want to monetize and build a business around this. Go set up my RazorPay account and help me start charging for this. So.
Jeff, to me, what's most impressive about this is that it's, to a large extent, autonomous. It's autonomous coding. It's sort of thinking about what you might want to see, and it's doing it in a way which obviously is based on data available, plus perhaps your own user interest. How smart is the software? How does it decide what it is that you want?
Yeah, it's actually really smart. I think when we launched it about 1.5 years ago, even us internally did not expect it to be doing this well at this point. So we're on the 3rd version of our agent. Actually, we're launching the 4th version in 20 days, which will be very exciting. And we kind of have a lot of small improvements in between, but then every 6 months we feel like we're able to make a big leap. And here, it's building with a lot of stuff. I mean, I give it very little prompting here, but I think some of our best users are enterprises who use it. We have all sorts of other features and stuff as you get deeper into the system where you can start to tell it how you like to build. I think some of the stuff you said was amazing. Is like, this is a very powerful tool. With great power comes great responsibility. And so there are ways to, teach this agent how we like to build, what systems you should or should not be building with. If you're in an enterprise, what data you want to connect or not connect, or who should be deploying these things to production. So it's very powerful, and I think it's only getting better and better. And I'm obviously very excited by it.
No, I think it's absolutely amazing. Jason, let me ask you. I got to ask you this question. Now, there are so many people who rely on AI to give them advice. They seek empathy from solutions. They seek medical advice. If they are lonely, they seek to speak to somebody. And that means that there isn't really a human interface over there. You're talking to a machine. Is that a legal issue for you? Is that an ethical challenge for you?
So, first of all, great to be here with all of my colleagues and all of you today. I think we just saw a great example of how there is always a human being in the equation, a human being who you called on in the audience to generate a great idea, a human being to start the process of the coding of the idea. In all of those use cases you talked about, I think it's very important that there be a human being somewhere in the equation. Let's talk about the medical use case you gave an example of. AI can be enormously valuable to a doctor in helping with the diagnosis. So we see these use cases across India, a lot of startups doing great work, particularly to empower rural healthcare providers who may see something on an X-ray that they've never seen before. And perhaps because they're in a rural area, nobody else has the same spot on an X-ray. AI can see millions of those, not personally identifiable, but it can compare that one X-ray to millions of examples in the purpose of helping that doctor with a diagnosis. But it's still going to come back to that doctor. And that's true across healthcare, it's true across education, financial services.
Yeah.
There's always a human in the equation. AI is a tool. It's a powerful software tool, as we've just seen a great example of, but it's still a tool to be deployed by
So you
humans
don't agree
in
with these
service of
doomsday
humans.
scenarios?
I don't agree with the doomsday scenarios. I would say AI is a very powerful and very effective and very exciting tool. But one of the reasons we're here all together is because of the AI Impact Summit being hosted here in Delhi by India as the world's largest democracy, seeking to ethically, responsibly, safely, and securely deploy AI innovations here in India and around the world.
But let me jump in for half a second. What India seeks to do now is based on one word, trust. Now, if I was to be the devil's advocate, I would ask, why would a company with proprietary rights over a piece of technology necessarily share it with another company or another country? Why should a country which develops certain technology, AI-driven, which is, for example, used for military purposes, share it with another country, right? This is stuff you want to hold on to. And yet we are talking about working all together.
Right. So let's talk about a physical world example that we're all familiar with that answers your question. This is one of those questions you used to ask, how many people have a phone in their pocket?
True.
Everybody's got one. You turn it over, there's a charging port in the bottom of it. No matter who manufactures your phone, no matter what platform it's on, that's a universal standard for charging. Now, why would companies collaborate with each other for a universal standard for charging? Because it benefits everybody in the ecosystem that I can borrow a charger from the person sitting next to me. And still there's competition. There are multiple device manufacturers on multiple platforms, but that kind of standard setting works for everybody. It's the same in the AI world. Standard setting on important things that we've been talking about, like ethics, like trust, like security. We can all follow security by design, make sure we're all following industry standards on security. Why? Because no one's going to trust and use your product if we don't follow those standards. So I would respectfully suggest that it's actually the opposite of the position you stated, that it is in everybody's benefit across the technology ecosystem to abide by uniformly accepted international standards.
I will hold you
because
to
we
this
all
in
get
2
that
years.
trust.
I will hold you to this in 2 years. I am scared of the technology, I must confess, but I hope it works well. Alok, as the technology evolves, how would Ixigo offer better solutions which are more personalized to users across, your user base?
Yeah, I think I wanted to make one point here about AI, that if you look at the evolution of the internet and then you had search, you had Google, etc., the access to information got democratized so that the person that's sitting in, let's say, the remotest village in the country could access the same information that someone, sitting in Gurgaon or Delhi could. With AI, this goes to the next level where the person sitting in the remotest part of India can access the same level of intelligence as all the intelligence of every human being on the planet combined, right? What this unfolds, not just in travel, but in every vertical, is a unique opportunity to work with these models to diffuse, the abilities, the capabilities of this intelligence within that domain, to the end user that might have a very unique problem statement. So I'll give you two small examples of, how it manifests itself. If you're someone who's planning a trip, of course you can get this information at multiple places. But imagine being able to marry that with your profile, because you've planned several trips, made several bookings on us, as well as, the metadata we have about your context. So if you're taking a train or a bus and we know what the likelihood of that delay or that wait list converting into a confirmed ticket, etc. is, we can now actually help you plan better with a higher degree of predictability in that experience, right? But this intelligence will manifest itself even more as all apps become more and more preemptive, personalized. I mean, when I say preemptive, I almost mean like if you all watched the movie Minority Report, where Tom Cruise, predicts when a crime is about to occur and actually knows about it already, right? So AI gives you the power to actually not make a customer reach out to you when something goes wrong, but instead reach out to the customer proactively and solve that problem, which is what we did in the Indigo crisis. But if you extend this by a couple of years, right, we're talking about product experience being the only differentiator, because the underlying models, in a sense, become commodity, right? So I think where we are headed to, at least at Ixigo, is saying, okay, if execution is commoditized, you might have a great idea. I think you got to spend a lot of time orchestrating the right agents to build out those experiences on the fly for that customer, for that particular context. So if I'm comparing two hotels, show me a very different kind of user experience and help me, don't just throw me the usual UI, maybe even allow me to chat with that, talk to it, tell it what I like, don't like, sure, and narrow down. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that intelligence emerging in the product itself. Yeah.
Jeff, just in terms of the AI sort of demonstration that you showed us, in terms of your own agent, does it improve itself?
We don't really have any reinforcement learning built in. I mean, I think our team is constantly doing a lot of stuff where when customers reach out with bugs, we're able to quickly respond and figure out the limits it's running into. We also just, interacting with AI is very new to everybody, and so I think people feel like it gets better because they also get more used to talking to the agent and explaining what it does well, what it does poorly. I mean, one thing that was kind of a breakthrough moment for me was the agent kept hitting an error, and a prompt I gave it was, hey, forget everything you just did, take a step back, reassess the situation, and come up with a new plan. And it actually fixed it in that situation. And so I think the thing that's improving is the technology's improving, also just more build time. I mean, we're there shipping new fixes every day, we're adding new features, adding new primitives, and then also just people are getting used to the technology, and when those three combine, the capabilities are pretty exponential.
Ivana, 3 words: privacy, compliance, and accountability. This is critical for any company if you are to adopt AI. These could also be looked at as just buzzwords. I would argue that they are, but I'm sure you would argue that no, in fact, this is what really needs to be looked at carefully.
Yeah, I wanted to just pick up on what you said. Now, I want you to think for a second something. Now, how many of you in this room have children? Okay. Imagine your children, they are on social media. They are with their friends, they take a photo of themselves, they post it. Okay? Then they go on another media or on another thing and blah, blah. Then they turn to the age of 23. They go to college, they've gone to college and they're looking for a job. Okay? When they go to their first job, the company hiring them uses a tool to verify from the previous history and digital footprint for your children, where they were 14, 15, 16, if they are reliable and trustworthy. So what they're using is a tool to say, for example, from the pictures, if they were reliable and if they are good employees. Now, as a parent, do you think it's fair for your children's future to be decided by the photos that they published when they were young?
No, I think those are absolutely critical questions.
Well, this is the heart of it, because yes, these tools can predict. Yes, these tools can tell you. But the problem is there has to be a threshold. And the threshold is really, really important. So the fact that something
is... Who defines that threshold?
The fact that something is technically possible doesn't mean that you do it. So this is what we're talking about. So forget the privacy, governance, forget this. It's really about what is acceptable and what is the innovation that we want to be behind. Companies have got their own responsibilities. This is why it's important to have a lot of people designing these tools, but we need to ask ourselves the tough questions, because otherwise we will be drawn in a world without knowing it.
No, I completely agree. It is important that we ask ourselves these tough questions. Look, it's been a fascinating conversation, and I'd like to thank all of you. I'd like to thank you for showing us, the development of an app in absolutely minutes, but the conversations on policy, on interoperability, on ethics, I think, are absolutely key to AI, but ultimately scale is critical for enterprises across the world. What is that scale going to be? It differs from country to country, company to company. Hopefully it's all safe. Thank you very much once again.